where I'm going to be able to comfortably do it. And that's my story.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing it. Because you were around in the early days of TEC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I set up this Discord, or actually paid by Viv to do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, good to have you here again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm not trying to participate in the meetings. I'm just trying to catch up. I see there's a lot going on, and I'm really excited. And I feel like TEC is a safe place.
Cool. Yeah, things are starting to move again in the TEC, so it feels good. So anyway, yeah, just feel free to just hang out, and yeah, we're gonna go through the agenda, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off today with the check-in. Today is not the standard check-in. This is one that we got. That was a suggestion a few weeks back. So superpowers you would like, superpowers you have, and superpowers you would actually. We'll save the superpowers you have for later. That's another one. So just what are like, what's one superpower you would like to have? And we'll start with Acid.
Thank you. I have always wanted teletransportation. You know, be ready just in 5 minutes and go to the place that you need to go. An example of this is that I need to go for my family to the airport, and it's very far from my home, so I just can use teletransportation, and that's it. And yeah, and I'll pass it to Bert.
Yeah, for me, I think similar to that. I think would be flying, probably, just as a means of transportation, but also to have cool views of the places where I'm at. So yeah, I think flying, that'd be really cool. I'll pass it to Isaac.
Thanks. Well, when I was younger, I thought one of the coolest superpowers was to be invisible, because then you would be able to do pretty much everything. And I still believe that. I think there's a lot of power in not being seen. And with that, I'll pass it over to Nate.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with telekinesis. Being able to control things with my mind, physical things, and create and dissolve matter would be pretty sweet. I'd still need to hop on Bear's back to get around, but you know, it'd be pretty nice. I'll pass it over to Joseph.
I think my superpower will probably be to be able to control nature. Anything, whether it's anything made from Mother Nature, whether it's like weather, electricity, or whatever the case is. I think I'll just make where I am just hot all the time. That's about it. But that would be my superpower. I'll pass it to Metamind. No, Mastermind, sorry.
Yeah, actually, last day, a voice in it. Can somebody brief me what is the task?
If you had to choose a superpower, what would it be?
Okay, superpower. I would like to fly. I'll pass it on to Vivian. I think I'm the last person.
Metaverde, do you want to go?
Yeah. So I'm good with flying. I think telekinesis and controlling nature are scary. I'm not sure who to pass it to, but that's cool. It's fun to think about. Thank you.
I'll take it. Mine is time travel, but only backwards in history. I don't want to see the future. That's not good. Okay, so all right, let's do some quick updates. we're doing these not by people. This was a suggestion a while, last week or week before. I think it's good. We'll just do it by projects. Token Engineering Academy, Angela just published the roadmap yesterday, so I linked that in the coordination channel if you want to see that. I definitely recommend reading that. Talks about where they are headed, particularly with the reputation stuff, but also with the partnership with TEC. So that's pretty cool. And the rest of it we'll talk about in a little bit. And grants program. Isaac, do you want to give an update? I can do the thing about ENS if you want, but any updates?
Sure. Well, I published yesterday the proposal to request $3,500 for the pilot, which in total with the ENS grant would be a total of around 5,000. So definitely check that out and give any feedback if you feel like it. We have yet to hear back from the GitCon guys. Maybe I should send them a DM this week or next week. And I'll be at the top of the hour. I'll be Eduardo invited me to talk on their call about the grant that we had and what are we working on. So yeah, excited about that.
And then the news I had was that that grant that we got from ENS was really good. That was just what I was hoping was going to happen, was that it kind of got us on the radar, and actually Eduardo kind of like hinted at this. So Coltron, who's one of the stewards at ENS, was talking to Griffin Tam at Denver, and he told them that they're very interested in entertaining another grant, a larger grant from TC, 10K, maybe 20K, and that they're specifically interested in working with the TEC to be a regrantor, like to basically help them to give away their money. I think specifically for token engineering. So this is exactly what we want to do. So it's really cool. It's very exciting. So this could be a chunk of the funds for our first Gitcoin round. So we need to follow up on that. And actually, that relates to your call in a little while, Isaac. So do a good job, man. No pressure. Just joking. All right. Conviction voting. Nate. Actually, let's wait on this because we're gonna get into this proposal package idea first down below. So let's hold off on that. Do you want to give an update on SPI? What's happening?
Yeah, right now we have our reputation systems open research group meeting every Friday, doing Twitter Spaces every Monday. So if you're interested in joining the Twitter Spaces, the research group on Fridays, please do so. We also have a new up and coming open research group that is developing with Good Dollar. It's going to be focused on UBI. So if UBI is something that you're interested in, it's a good one to join as well. And we have a bunch of interest from a bunch of different groups who are wanting to start an interest group. And so it'll be really interesting to start to aggregate all this and provide a schedule for people who are interested in these certain topics as we move forward. We're also moving forward with the curation service. We've been kind of getting some of these initial reps in with the reputation system, where we're submitting articles every Friday within our meeting at the beginning, and then going over those articles on our Twitter Spaces to share with the broader TE community. So right now the Shelling Point initiative is just starting to build up steam and momentum, and we're looking forward to seeing it succeed. So if you're interested in that, please let me know.
Cool. And one other thing, I did talk with Livia yesterday, and I think that they are interested in one, they're going to do some type of she's following up on the Ask Me Anything, the AMA for the research, the stakeholder research study. And I think that she might be interested in doing the interest group. for that, like basically kind of having a nice, like a temporary place for that. Still kind of like going back and forth on that, but that could be another one. And Bear, do you want to give an update on accountability and review period?
Yeah, pretty quickly, pretty straightforward. This week I have started sending out the templates for self review on the roles that everyone has. I hope I'll get those results probably towards the beginning of next week, and I think that's going to be interesting. The plan is that if there are any changes that are suggested, those can be implemented towards April, right? Towards the month of April. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a really cool first trial that we give to this tool. See how that goes, and then adjust accordingly. But yeah, I'm just waiting on that. We also have some. I think we're gonna talk about that a little later, in terms with a team agreement that it's basically ready to be signed by the members of the team. But there are still some things that I think we will need to work on before we can do that. And yeah, I think that's it for now.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So agenda items for today is, I want to just talk a little bit about engagement, what that looks like. How do we scale up engagement for season 2? And then coordination team membership, which is something Bear was just touching on. This idea of a proposal package for the common pool, but it's actually bigger than that. So I want to talk about that and get some feedback from you all on that. And then just project management in general. We've got some examples of a few basically monthly plans for those, and we just want to talk about some of the process for doing that. It's basically following up on some of the feedback that you all provided 2 weeks ago, I think, or maybe it was last week. I don't know. Time is collapsing. My superpower is failing me. I'm not able to look back in the past. Okay, so let's talk about engagement in season 2. I want to frame it a little bit, and then we can dive into it. Basically, this was one of the things that we identified a while back as like a priority. We've got, when it comes to like internal priorities, we're going to continue to make progress on the accountability stuff that Bear's working on, and one of the other things that we want to do internally is making sure that the work of the Commons doesn't all have to be held by this tiny team and this tiny budget. So what that means is we need to be thinking creatively about how we tap the power of this mission and tap the power of people's desire to make a difference and belong to something bigger than just themselves, as a way of building engagement in this Commons. And so that's basically what we're going to be working on. One of the things we'll be working on in season 2, and Bear is going to be leading the charge there. But I think that as we'll discuss, there will be other people who will be definitely involved in that. And so some of the different aspects of this are, definitely as we're looking at the merger with Token Engineering Academy, and thinking about what that would look like, integrating our engagement with them is going to be really important. And in particular, like, how do we support their work? How do we help tap the Commons, like the community and the stakeholders of the Commons, to help basically help the Academy to fulfill its mission? So that's one of the things. And then the other thing is, when it comes to engagement and recognizing people's contributions, man, like the obvious solution is there. It's praise, but it's not really working that well right now for the TEC, in my opinion, and I think in a number of people's opinions. So that's one thing that we want to figure out. And then I don't know if you all saw this, but I think just yesterday, Mitch posted a proposal for extending praise onto Twitter, and focusing it less on contributions to the TEC, the DAO, and more to the field of token engineering. So I think that there's something really cool about that, but also how do we make sure that we don't end up with kind of the same thing happening where, you know, it's only partially a technology challenge. Like so much of it is like, you know, what actually motivates people. And if we get that wrong, then we risk kind of messing things up. So so we want to talk about that, like how praise fits in, and in particular this Twitter praise thing, like how might that fit in? And then specifically, there are a couple of areas that I think are going to be very ripe for doing what we could call permissionless engagement, basically like ways for people to just jump in and not have to get permission from us to be able to participate. So we tried that with the Share It channel, and I think we're realizing that there's some limits to that, that I think we need to look at squarely and assess whether that makes sense to continue to focus there, or whether we shift some of that focus elsewhere. And specifically, one of the things that Nate and I have been talking about is the Shelling Point Initiative. Can we make that become like the primary point of engagement for people who are new to the community and want to get involved and contribute? And what might that look like? You know, are there ways that, you know, for example, the work that's happening around reputation, curating content around reputation, can we scale that up and maybe have like a merry band of curators, right? Volunteer curators who are being recognized in some ways that are meaningful to them. So I just want to, you know, basically take a little bit of time, 10, 15 minutes to talk about these different dimensions of engagement, because this will shape what we pitch as part of our proposal for season 2. And then if we have time, I don't know if I don't want to make this the focus necessarily, but bounties is another thing that we need to just be keeping in mind, because there will be times when we're going to have to pay for work. And as the different project managers, you know, that will have to be like one of the tools that we have. But I don't think we can tackle that in this same conversation. So I'll stop talking, and I just want to open this up for general comments and just thoughts, questions.
All right, I have a quick question with regards to first I'll tackle my praise question. So when you say praise is not working, what exactly within praise is not working? Is it us not using the technology, or is it the technology not fitting what we want it to do? Is it people just actually praising like themselves or other people within the DAO? Like what exactly is not working? Because then if you can identify what's not working here, then, you know, then moving it to Twitter, then we wouldn't be recreating the same problems that you might see with us using it in the DAO right now.
I mean, I can give my opinions, but I'd be interested in other people's opinions. I'm not going to say anything first. Let me just open it up to others, and I'm happy. I will definitely weigh in with my thoughts, but I want to hear from others too.
Yeah.
I personally think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
Well, I think we should really question the use of praise here, because let's first separate praise into two things, right? Praise is both the cultural artifact of being grateful, which is excellent. That there's no question about that. and then there's the actual reward system mechanism, and I don't think there's evidence of that working in any way. Um, so before we even spend 10K or we even continue doing praise, in my opinion, we should try to ask or to, I don't know, but I don't think there's any data that supports praise actually working here. And after all the changes, after pretty much all working groups dissolved and all of that, uh, praise here is pretty much dead. And I don't think, and the reason being, this is my assumptions, but again, there's no really, I haven't seen any report on the goals, on the effects, etc., etc. of praise. But my assumption is that on such a niche and specialized um, thing like token engineering, for example, it's really hard to be praising people like or there must be some other signals that have less friction to let a system like praise or other system know that someone did something so that they can be compensated. But I think praise is just too complicated and not necessarily the best fit for this space.
So I'm gonna slightly disagree with that. I think you're right in a lot of ways that it doesn't work with us right now. But it's just the context of praise is meant to be amongst the larger community where more praise that is being dished out reinforces the act of giving praise, which reinforces the act of so it's something that's very scalable. But when you're having a small group, it kind of just lingers there. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with praise. I think praise is really important. Even with us, I think if we actively use praise, I think this is something that's important that we do because we're here every day as a coordination team and as a group of people who are working on the TEC week in and week out, and we should be aggregating governance power. We really should, even if it's minimal each week. And if praise is the method to do that, then we need to really execute on that or figure out some other way to start gaining governance in terms of just voting power. I think that is um, something that we're missing right now. Um, there's no reason that we shouldn't have a method for gaining voting power by our participation in the week-to-week basis. I think praise on Twitter would be an interesting aspect because you're opening it up to the broader TE community. Those who know how to use it can use it. But then again, I'm not sure exactly what the limits or constraints are on that type of system. I think praise is just one component of a full-on reputation system, and therefore it's hard for me to say let's put all our eggs in the praise basket because I think it only captures the subjective aspect and the connections between certain members. And so I do think it's complicated, but I don't think it's inherently like flawed or wrong. I just think our use of it is poor, and the context for having a small team versus a humongous community is we're not there right now. And so I can imagine this being a very vital, important part for the SPI, for example, if we see like um, you know interest groups and research groups all over the place. I think praise would be a fantastic method for distributing governance power to token engineers who are investigating certain interests within the space. Um, I don't think it's clear cut black and white. I think we're looking at this snapshot in time right now and applying a kind of a universal perspective on whether it's good or bad. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. And so I have mixed feelings about it right now. I don't think it's very useful, but I do think it has a place in the future of the DEC. So I'm just going to say that and pass it on to whoever else has any thoughts.
If I may just add something very quickly to my comment, I think we cannot afford it right now. There's other communities using praise, most of them with way more with more money than us, and with the financials, with now having to take over, now having this team, the academy, which is going to rely more and more on us and all responsibilities. Every single cent that we spend on something that we don't have 100% conviction on, I think is a for me.
I do agree with the funding aspect, though. Yeah, you're definitely right. We're not, you know, we've spent a lot of money on praise and the development of praise already, and I think that there are tons of communities that are now adopting it, and it's yeah, I think they can explore other options as well and be just fine. So yeah, I do agree with that as well.
Any other thought? I have some thoughts, but any other thoughts?
Yeah. Can I go?
Of course, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think most systems are laid on data points. You know, and I think Praise is the only system where, you know, peer-to-peer review system that actually happens. And I think Praise is very differentiating from all this. But the only problem I find is that there is very little commercial value to, as in I say, very little commercial value on the praise you receive. As in, you can't use the praise. There is very little commercial value to it. Otherwise, when you look at most systems in terms of reputation or what compensation you get, I think most systems are related on data point, and this is very peer-to-peer. Somebody is able to say, okay, you do this, and it's very contextual. But the other systems don't. But in this system, you get very little commercial value. So the limitation I see for it.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just add, I think praise was great until we started paying money. Until we started dishing out money, and then the whole thing it basically kind of collapsed, because I think that one, you know, it felt good to praise people, and it's really nice to show gratitude, and that just really scratches this very basic human desire. But then once people saw how much money, I mean, this is kind of what Marathon Mind's saying. It's like once people saw how much money they were actually getting, it collapsed this thing that should be, you know, this really good feeling. It collapsed it into a monetary value, and the monetary value wasn't even that much. And so I think people were like, what? All that work, and then all I got was this? You know, all I got was like 5 die? What? This just doesn't make any sense. So I think that the problem I see with praise is that it's ruining intrinsic motivation, and I feel pretty strongly about this, actually. Like, I think it's you know, a giving economy, or like an appreciation economy, or there's lots of like gift economy, lots of different ways of describing it. But when you reduce it into dollars, and you know, I think it steals meaning away from people. So I think that praise, the mechanics of praise, like the technology, not so bad, actually, pretty interesting. But I think that it really should move more towards like non-financial mechanism. Like it's really more about what Nate was talking about, which is, I think it's more about governance. You know, it's like, I hope that at some point we'll come to some system where governance in the TEC will be partially based on your financial, like the liquidity you provide to the commons, partially based on the expertise you bring to the commons, and partially based on your contributions to the commons. So right now, I think praise is kind of giving some weird signals. And that's part of why it's collapsed. And then part of the reasons it's collapsed is just there's not as much engagement in the community right now. I also am worried about rolling this out on Twitter and trying to apply this to token engineering expertise, because, man, it was hard enough doing quantification of work within the TEC, but who's actually really going to judge whether or not an innovation in token engineering is really valuable? Like, we're going to have to, that means like getting some people who are really discerning in terms of doing the quantification process. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I guess in the final thing is that I think that there could be something here. And so I'm trying to figure out what's, you know, to use appreciative inquiry, like what is the nice nugget here that Mitch and the rest of the crew there are, I think they're interested, like, how do we tap that passion that they have to build something cool and align it more with like how we actually motivate people. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think there's I'm not really sure how, but I think the biggest issue is that there seems to be a bit of disconnect between the rewards working group and all that's happening. So like there's not really like a feedback cycle. So the rewards working group has its own sort of rewards review period, or I don't know how they call them, but that's for quantifiers and all of that. But then at which point does the TEC community understands what data is going through praise, and at which point the rewards working group understands how is it looking for the TEC? Because right now it seems like it's running all sort of um, on automatic mode, and they just go around having the quantification periods. But uh, I personally haven't dish any praise in a while. I don't see the channel being used in any bit. I don't know what's happening, and for now to be requested 20K, I don't know. But I think if anything, if the TC is going to continue with rewards, we must find a way to sort of bring everything together so that everyone is on the same page.
That's really true about the lack of coordination. There's a rewards call, but yeah, we don't feel like we are working together. In the past, I saw the praise reward system like something amazing because I was only related to the one type reward system, and it was very difficult to understand in that moment because I was going to my rabbit hole and that stuff, and I wasn't understanding anything. But when I get to the praise and I saw that my contributions were gaining some TC tokens, and that TC tokens I can convert to money. That was the thing that I was amazing about it. But yeah, I think the price is not working out because the people is not using it. So I use it, but very low compared to the past. But people is not using it anymore, and I think that's a problem because TC was about culture and inclusion and all that stuff, and the praise was helping a lot with that. But yeah, I agree with Isaac about that.
Okay. I'm just Nate. I'll give you the last word. I think we should move on because I don't want this all to be about praise. We really got to think about like a little bit more broadly, like what we want to do in the next season.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with NT 100%. I think the funding this is not something that we need to be fully supported. They're creating their own product. They're having their own team. This is something that's growing out of the TEC, kind of like Gravity is, and it should not be dependent on our funding. And so I think that's the case. And if we can figure out a way in the future to actually remove the TEC token as a method for distribution connected to praise and replace it with some type of reputation token, that would be a better alternative.
Okay. Thanks everybody. This is good. I'm trying to figure out what I'm probably going to go make a comment on the proposal, but I just wanted to get people's takes on this. I mean, obviously, if you feel like you want to comment, please do so. Like I wanted to gather everybody's thoughts so it could help me form my thoughts too. Let's talk a little bit more about general engagement. Like, I think, I'm going to contrast the praise thing with what is happening in the academy, which is actually pretty impressive. Like, if you look at all these study groups and things like that, I mean, I don't think they're perfect, but, and Isaac, you might have some insights on this, but talking to Angela about that, like, and actually, they have not been that interested in giving away praise, like financial, like basically tokens with financial value, because she's concerned about what that does to intrinsic motivation as well. So, and what they've done instead, and where they're moving, is using OtterSpace badges as a way of recognizing a kind of like a reputation and contributions for people's hard work and also for their knowledge. So I think that we have a similar opportunity for some of the curation stuff, but I just I'm curious about people's thoughts about use of badges and use of special roles and things like that, acknowledging people through roles or badges as a way to engage.
I think definitely, I definitely do agree with that way of kind of doing things. My only question would be, would that method only be contained within the TEC and its affiliates, or is it something that can be used outside of the TEC? Because so for example, if I knew that the badge system that you're proposing, I could use it here and take it to and represent or show other DAOs or other people in Web3 that this is what I've done within the TEC, and these are the badges I've collected over the 9 months or the 6 months I was heavily involved in the DAO. Then I think that will bring more motivation for people to actually take part in it and have a motivation to actually participate in game badges, because it's not monetary but it's reputation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Absolutely. Like, in order for it to have value, you have to be able to show it off in places other than just the academy and the TC. And that's definitely the academy's design is that it's definitely visible to anybody.
I think the issue here is that there's many layers to the TEC. So, for example, as in the form of contributions, I think it doesn't make much sense. Like, we can have them, but I would guess that contributions should be paid, unless there's some like very low hanging fruit things where we can have a small program where people collect badges in exchange for small things, but like serious contributions should probably end up being paid. But then the issue with the other parts of the TC is that it doesn't seem like we can yet close the circle, if that makes sense. So, for example, with the SPI, so the academy has, you have like a full circle. You use the badge. You can see a path for the badge to be useful. You complete an exam, you get a badge. You contribute to the study groups, you get a badge, and you know for sure that that's going to complement your portfolio, your curriculum, whatever. We haven't been able to do much with the SPI. Nate has said this a few times, precisely because of the academy, because the academy has its circle, and we don't want to mess with that circle. And so, before even thinking of compensation, we have to think of monetary compensation. We have to think of how can we properly close the circle, and then we can find out which way to close it is the most appropriate. But right now, we can issue the badges to the people in those groups, but there's probably a limit to where we can go if we don't clear things with the academy.
And I think this extends well beyond the Academy as well. I think that any type of reputation system and badging system, even with the TE Academy, we need to create a kind of like, this is something I've been thinking about with the reputation system research group, is that we need to create a standard for how reputation is ported to one community to another, and have that standard recognized by token engineering communities around the industry, to recognize certain types of badges, certain types of achievements, and having some type of universal scoring system that allows us to really evaluate the skills and past experiences of individuals who are participating in the token engineering field. And so this is something that, even if, what TE Academy has started is a great starting point, but we need to have it be useful. Having a badge is great and you can show it off, but if other organizations and industries do not recognize that as being legitimate or worthy of recognition, then it doesn't really matter. And so I think having this kind of reputation standard across the token engineering field is really, really important to be on the same page. And then it doesn't matter who issues it. We can issue our own within within the SPI if we wanted to, because it follows a particular standard that is recognized by all organizations within the TE field. But this is something that, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I think there's a lot to be developed here.
Yeah, I think to the earlier point which we discussed, I think price is significantly, there's no value to significantly no commercial value to what price is giving. I think from that point, if you move on, so today there is an article which I posted on Share Channel, which is uh,
Marathon Mind, I missed that last part. You posted an article. What was it? You're muted if you're trying to talk. Okay, Marathon Mind, we're going to move on to the next person if there's somebody, and feel free to jump back in. I'm not sure what's happening. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the idea of using badges, that's something we've had for a long time, and we've been trying to find ways to implement that. But for some reason or another, I think we haven't been able to, or we haven't found the right concept to do it. But what I think is that I think probably there could be something done in terms of curation. And again, just reminding ourselves this idea of, like radical simplicity, to try to come up with a really minimum viable product of something we can do and try out with badges and curation service towards this idea of the library, of the knowledge library. I think that could be something cool, like maybe think about some sort of badge that you get it once you have curated at least 10 articles, right? And something pretty simple, and start experimenting with that, and start probably also working together with the academy in that sense, right? Maybe our first goal is that people from the academy find this type of badges valuable for them, right? And then there can be some sort of interest from their side into coming here and starting to get involved with the curation aspect of things. I think that'd be a good thing that could happen. And just like that, like give it a try. I think that's something that's always good to do. besides just like trying to think about what could happen, right? Because I do think that there's power there, right? It's just like the way we go about it that we haven't been able to define. So yeah.
Okay. We're going to need to move on to the next topic, but super useful conversation. And I'm actually going to Marathon Mind. Did you have something?
Yeah, sorry, I got my voice cut out. Yeah, can I continue with the last point?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So I thought there was a little incentive with praise. So as we speaking on badges, I think badges and attestations could be much better than if you receive it in tokens. I can use this across the system, like it'll be more composable, and since we are all working in multiple projects, I think if I'm able to get something, say I'm getting some praise through TEC and it is in tokens, instead of that I get it in attestation and badges. That'd be much more useful. I can show it in the other projects and say I got something from TEC. And I think with most reputation system, the most valuable thing is that the brand that attester has, and somebody is issuing the attestation. I think TEC is having that sort of a brand that they are there. So if they're able to issue that badge or an attestation, if I'm able to receive it, I think it will be much more useful than receiving a praise through liquid tokens, is what I think.
Okay, thank you. That's actually a great way to close it. I completely agree with what you just said. That summary is like, we don't have money, but the TC does have still has like a really good reputation, and the value of our attestation is worth something. So yeah, good luck, Isaac. Good luck with that, with your call. You can't hear me, but thinking about you. All right. So so what I'm going to suggest is that we form a little group and maybe just have some conversations about this, and how this badge idea, the curation idea, badge idea, SPI, how we might shape this and do some type of MVP for season 2. So some of us have talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth trying to nail this down. So maybe next week we can talk a little bit more about that. Let's move on to the next topic, which is related, actually, which is coordination team membership. The basic challenge I think that we're going to have is that we are going to want to add people to this coordination team over time. Like, it's going to be very natural that we're going to want to do that. And yet the problem is that we are living on a very tight budget intentionally. Like, we've said that the kind of spending that the TEC was doing on operations in the past is just not sustainable, and so we've cut our spending down to 1/4 of what it was. So that's not going away. I don't think it ever should. Like, we need to run this ship very tightly and make sure that as much value as possible is going back into the mission. So that's going to be the tension, is that we want to keep this open. We want to bring new people in, and yet there's this limited budget. And so I think that we're, part of it, what the solution to this is making sure that people who are on this team are really, really committed. And part of that is this, that we're all in this together, that we're a self-managing team, that we hold each other accountable for the work that we're doing. Like, this is not, there's no manager here, there's no hierarchy. That stuff that's missing. And so part of the work that Bear has been doing is it's a lot of work. I think you all know this, but it's a ton of work figuring out this whole role thing. And part of this is this team agreement that he's pulled together. But it's like, how do we as a team hold each other accountable so that we are accountable to the stakeholders and to the mission, and like really serious about that. Like that's our job. So so the thing that the two things that I wanted to just touch on is that there is this team agreement. I think we wanted to just take a quick look at that. It's not quite ready, but it's getting close. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is that as we roll this out, one of the things that Bear is going to be working on probably in the next season. I don't know when you're going to be able to get to this, Bear, but it's like, what does it mean to join this team? What is the process for people joining this team? What are the responsibilities that are part of the role of the coordination team member? So that's kind of the next phase of this work, is how do we balance those two tensions. Bear, do you want me to should I link to the document so we can look at it, or what would you like to do, or do you want to just do that async?
Yeah, I think it hasn't changed much. Based on the police poll, most of people agreed to everything. So I think that was really good. There was just one statement added in terms of honesty. I think that's really important. So we just added that, and we added like the section for the signers, right? When we get to sign that doc, there will be a section there. So yeah, I think we can probably leave it as async. If people want to take a look at it and still leave any comments or questions, they can do that. But yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're not asking people to sign it at the point. That's going to be part of this kind of overall process. But right now, you're just trying to get feedback. My only feedback, I guess the reason I'm raising this is that it still feels like there's a lot of bullets in here. And so I think that's my only desire, is to like try to, if we can distill it down, in some cases, like less is more, you know? So I think that's the only thing I'm looking at. But so not signing, right?
Okay, not signing, yeah. But any feedback that can be taken, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And so that link is there, and maybe Bear, maybe you can share the link in the coordination channel, and just mention folks so they can provide the feedback.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, cool. Next topic is, man, it's getting complicated. So I'm now seeing a whole bunch of proposals starting to move again. Like after a period of like 5-6 months where we weren't really seeing many proposals coming, now we're starting to see a lot. So one of the things that, and so one of the challenges is, how do we deal with that? Basically, we've done a great job of curbing spending so that the common pool is more sustainable. So the operation spending has gone down, but one of the challenges is that we can still have lots and lots of proposals coming to the commons, and it could very easily drain the commons pretty, like by the end of this year, or maybe not long after that, especially if we move away from the conviction voting. So part of what we're looking at right now is this thing that we talked about last week, which is the shift from conviction voting to Tau voting. but I think that there's a way of describing this shift that will help the community to understand the bigger picture of what's going on. And so I've talked to a few of you about this, and I also just talked to Griff about it yesterday, and also got some feedback from Angela on this. I think that one way of doing this is to kind of frame a proposal package, basically, that is like a pretty simple and short explanation of like big picture of what's going on, and then link that to these proposals that are right here. So the wrapper would be an explanation that's basically saying, you know, we've curbed operational spending. Now we're trying to make sure that the way that we steward the common pool, we need to adjust it. And so part of that is going to be shifting conviction voting to DAO voting. But part of it is also making sure that we've got enough money to keep the TEC running. But then also, as part of the strategic framework, cover the Token Engineering Academy's operations. And as part of that, this is part of a bigger plan that was in the strategic framework, or suggested in the strategic framework, that is executing a merger with the Academy. And so that basically what we're trying to do is, until the commons is sustainable again and we're able to start replenishing the common pool, either through token utility or revenues or some combination of the two, we need to be a lot more careful about access to the common pool. This is something that Ostrom talked about, you know, being able to dynamically adjust based on what's actually happening in the commons. I think we're at that point a year later now, after launch, where we need to make some adjustments. And so that frame, this kind of overall picture is need to focus on making sure that we keep the operations as efficient as possible and support the education mission of the commons, or the mission, the education component of the mission. And then the last piece is we also want to be able to support public goods funding, just like that was the original vision, but we are realizing that we put a budget around that. And in a way, it's kind of like constraint. It's like if there's an interface into the public good portion of the commons pool, the common pool, like what does that look like? And it's the grant program that Isaac is piloting and that we'll be rolling out with Gitcoin in a few months. So I feel like I've just been blabbing on here for quite a bit, but I wanted to provide you all with this context of like the way that I'm thinking about this, because it's kind of a tricky set of steps that we've got to negotiate over the next month or so, while a bunch of people are thinking about submitting new funding proposals. So I'll rest here and get some comments and questions if you have any.
Just so that I understand everything, I'm just going to repeat, kind of like summarize what you said. So, so basically, what it is that we want to limit the type of access that people have to gain funds from the common pool, as well as and to facilitate that, we're moving away from conviction voting to TAO voting, and as well as that, on top, we're also doing a merge with the token engineering academy, and making sure that once we go through that merge with them, we're still able to make the common pool sustainable for, and that's whether it's through the token utility or funds externally for whatever reason. Is that correct? I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right page.
I think that's an excellent summary. Yes, thank you. I wish I could.
Okay.
But yes.
All right. So, with regards to not the token utility, but like gaining funds that are not from token utility, what type of things are you are in place, or would you like to see in place in order to kind of facilitate that?
So, yeah, basically, the quick history on this is last May/June. That was the question that we were asking. Token utility and revenues. How do we start to build those? And so we set up the Sampo working group as a way to do that. Basically, what ended up happening is what I realized is that it didn't, in a way, we knew it was going to take a while to start to build those up, build up utility and build up revenues. But the thing that was the more immediate impact that we could have was to stop our spending. So we were just spending a lot of money as a DAO and essentially draining the commons. So it took a while, but basically that's what we did, starting in September, October, and November, just tamping everything down. And the result was that by November, December, we got it to a place where we were now spending a quarter of what we were. And now we're in a place where we could then stop and look and say, okay, what is the strategy? And so that was the strategic framework. And now we're coming back to this question that we originally started to ask last May. Now that we've stopped the bleeding, I shouldn't say bleeding, but like stopped this, we've slowed the spending, the burn rate. And so now we can come back to this question of how do we build utility and how do we start to get some revenues. And the short answer is that we need to do it in a way that's supporting the strategy that the strategic framework laid out. And so where we're concentrating is in the education area. And we think that there's like some relatively near-term things that we can do around token utility and revenues in coordination with the academy. So the partnership, the merger, the idea of the merge with the academy is based on a few things. One is that this space is just not developed enough and big enough to support two entities that are essentially doing kind of a very similar mission. So it's much better to integrate that work into one through some type of merger. Two, logically, it makes sense to focus the energy right now on token engineering for laid out in that strategic framework. And then three, there do seem to be some areas where we will get some token utility, and probably our best near-term bet for building that token utility. And so I think next week we'll start to talk a little bit more about what those are, but there's some work that they're doing to basically charge for the learning modules when you take that test and you get basically NFT proof of learning. And so the academy is going to start charging for that. And so we're looking at ways of paying for that in TEC, but we're also looking at a membership model. And we'll talk some more about that next week. But these are the things. There's like a whole kind of series of mini things that we're going to be doing near term, start to generate that. And then longer term, I think there's lots of room, but starting with the education. Other thoughts, questions?
I have a question. This idea of how is it called? Yeah, kind of like the proposal package. Would that be kind of like a forum post, or the idea is to actually be an actual proposal that contains all the funds for all the other proposals, or how does that look like? What do we exactly mean with proposal package?
Yeah, I think I will share this either tomorrow or Monday. But basically, what this is going to look, I think, what this is going to look like, and this is part of what I want to get your feedback on, is an initial post that'll be kind of like community advice process, so it won't actually be a vote, and then it will have pointers to all of these sub proposals. And the idea would be, it's a lot harder to pass votes that are TAO votes than because the threshold is relatively high, so we need to do some community organizing. So it makes sense to do this as kind of a flock of proposals and basically go to the token holders and say, while you're up there, these are all of the ones, today's the day, for you to like spend some time thinking about the TEC. And here's the integrated set of proposals that these are the set of moves that we want to make over this month. And so please take a look at these and vote on all of these at the same time. So basically, it would be one community advice process proposal that links to other proposals that then would be voted on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then the voting, that's for kind of like accepting the idea of the proposal, or to actually releasing the funds for all the proposals?
It depends on the proposal, but like in the case of conviction voting, that would be accepting the idea of shifting away from conviction voting to TAO voting. And then it would be the TEC operations, coordination team operations, the Token Engineering Academy operations, that would be funding. And then the proposal to merge, this is a trickier one. I don't know if we can pull that off in the same time frame. What we might do first is a proposal to fund exploration of the merger. I don't know. This is a question that we need to investigate further. And then the proposal for the grants program, that would be funding. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you, Gideon.
Any other questions? I know this is kind of tricky, but it is tricky.
Just want to say that, yeah, I think it's a great idea to put it this way. I think it gives a lot more context to people in terms of what we're doing and why are we doing things, and how this relates with the academy and the changes in the voting mechanisms. Yeah, I think it covers everything. So I think that's going to be really beneficial for the understanding, and probably also for, like you mentioned, right, for the participation on the voting.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we move on? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, more on this next week. It's, as I say, it's kind of a mind bender. So we want to jump into the project management. And Bear, what do you think about? Do you want to just lead this part of it? I know I wrote some of this up, but do you want to do us through this? I feel like I've been talking way too much on this.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's good, and if I miss anything, you can also clarify or anything. Well, like we all know, like since a couple of weeks ago, we've been trying to constantly readjust and integrate new feedback that we've been having based on our experience managing the current active projects that we have. And based on that, I've been doing some work. Gideon has been also helping me a lot with this, trying to come up with new ideas, with new approaches on how can we handle the project management side of things. And I think it's pretty good progress. So we'd like to share that with you. Some concepts here. The first one that I see here that I think it's also now to clarify and try to nail down once and for all is how should we call these people that are leading the projects that we have, right? We've called them like project managers, project coordinators, project organizers, project leads. So I don't know, maybe if we have just like a really quick round of people saying what they like, what they prefer, or I think that'd be a good way to kind of like get a sense of how should we call ourselves. Personally, I could start. I like either project organizers or project leads. I think that those sound pretty cool. But I'll just pass it around maybe, and we can do this pretty fast. So I'll pass it to Nate.
Yeah, I think whatever is best for the individuals participating. I think matching industry standards of whether it's in tech or whatever it may be that best describes this type of thing is very helpful. So I think like project manager is probably best, or I'm not sure exactly, but I do think project manager is just fine because it can be carried to other places and people have a good understanding of the responsibilities and the work that is being done is relatable to other things. Later on, if they decide to move on from the TEC, or we consider this part of an organization that we're working for. So I think whatever is most accurate in terms of common industry terminology. So project manager, I think, is really good. And I'll pass it over to Jay Henney.
Yeah, I think I agree with kind of what Nate said with regards to just keeping it the kind of same as industry kind of standards. So so that when if someone wanted to use what they're done here at the TEC to go somewhere else, it's not like foreign to the other committee or wherever they're going. So like, yeah, here I was a coordination specialist, and it's like, wait, what was that? What does that entail? So yeah, I think keeping it standard, like what Nate said, is I agree with him. I'll pass it on to Marathon Mind. If not, probably pass it back to you, Gideon, if Marathon Mind's not there.
Metaverde, do you be interested to hear your thoughts on this? I know it's still, you're still ramping up on stuff, but any thoughts? Oh, Metaverde, I must have had I must have been muted. Metaverde, I was just asking if you have any thoughts on this, if you can speak. And if not, that's fine. Okay. And Marathon Mind, we were having trouble hearing you. Are you having mic issues?
Yeah, I'm having mic issues and hearing issues. I'm not understanding the question actually.
Question is, what term do you think is best, for describing the kind of the coordination or management of these projects? Project manager, project coordinator, project organizer, project lead, or something else?
Okay. I think project manager is a nice term.
I've got my mic back when you're ready.
Go for it.
I think it depends on what we're doing. Like if we're creating a whole new way of interacting with work, then we can come up with new names. But if we're basically implementing the same system, then we should keep the same names.
Okay, thank you. Bear, turning it back over to you. Oh, I can give my comments. I really like the idea of organizer because I think that's what we're trying to do is it's more like a community organizing model where we're really trying to organize the community to do more of the work, and it's not like a traditional corporate model where we're doing like I manage this project, but I having said that, I do recognize that people want to build a resume or a CV, and so a standard term like manager more easily understood. So I understand that.
Can we look at it as an opportunity to? I'm not voting one way or the other right now, but can we look at it as an opportunity to nudge back into like a reasonable realm what project manager is? So we're calling it a project manager, but we're treating it in a slightly different way and leading by example, or actually in a big different way. See what I mean? So if we call it project manager, we might contribute to sort of straightening back out what a project manager is overall.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, I think that is kind of what Bear is doing roles. So yeah. Okay, Bear, handing it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'll just send this to Antti and Acid for them to also get their opinions, and we'll go how that goes. So thank you, everyone. Next, moving forward, this is where part of the work we've been doing. So like we talked about last week on the call, this idea of probably taking communications and treat it as a project with that approach could be something helpful and interesting for us. So what I did is just I gave a try to it, and I tried to take this communications project as kind of like proof of concept for this new sort of format that we can use for projects based on the feedback that was mentioned of that I think it would be pretty good that at the beginning of every month we have some sort of like basic project spec for all the projects that we have, although it's not like super detailed and like the whole project plan is not there, but it's something pretty concise and something that can give us a pretty good idea of what the project is going to look like, what the project is going to solve, what are their goals, and what are their like expected outcomes for the coming month, right? So I tried to come up with a pretty simple format. That the idea is that to give freedom for the project managers to implement their projects plans as they prefer, as they want, bring that flexibility to them. But the only thing we would be kind of like requiring is that at the beginning of the month they have this template kind of like filled out, right? I don't know, Gideon, if you want to share like maybe we can start with a communications example. We can review it that way. It's pretty concise. It has a first section of the contributors, like the people who would be getting involved in the project. And again, taking the communications one project as an example, we agreed that Joseph was going to be leading this project, and these were the people, Acid Laser, Marathon, Gideon, and I, that we wanted to get involved with that, right? So pretty straightforward. Then this section of key factors to consider, just pretty straightforward questions that I think are important to have an answer to in every project. Like what problem is this project solving? How much is going to cost? What is the return? What are the benefits that this project is going to bring to the commons? Or what what costs are this project gonna save, you know, and lastly the timeline, you know, how long is this gonna take. That's kind of like that second section. The third section is just this idea that we've been trying to work with, the SMART outcomes. So just like SMART monthly outcomes that the project organizer defines for the upcoming month. Let's say in this case March, you know, and then you just state them. You state the different outcomes that you are expecting to complete during the month. I'll go into more detail a little bit later. And then the last section is we're just calling it like evergreen tasks, just in case that for this project there are certain tasks that are repetitive and that doesn't have like an end, you know. So and that's it, you know. That's kind of like the full format that we were thinking could be implemented for every project that we do. Then this way, anyone can come here, look at this, you know, like learn about the project, and then also at the end of the project we can then measure the progress and the results based on these like pretty well defined monthly outcomes, right? Now going into a little more detail into this section, another important aspect of it, it's you know, trying to prioritize these outcomes, right? Because maybe a project has a lot of outcomes, for example, for this case, and you know, how are we gonna define if are we doing everything this month? Are we doing a couple of them? What is that mechanism that we have to decide which one are we taking, or if we're taking everything? So maybe this idea that we've talked about before as well, urgent and important, I think that's something we can implement as well here for the outcomes, and just having the project organizer define which of these outcomes are urgent, what ones are not urgent, and I think that can be a really good sign for the rest of the people when they see this, like be able to say, yeah, like we all agree on that as a group, you know. And the last part that I wanted to talk about is this idea. You know, I was going through the budget for February and for March, and the reality is that we were able to save around 1,700 in February. You know, like I think that's pretty good. Most of it was due to some contributors not taking their compensation, but that's still like some good amount that has been transferred to, or that we have saved there, right? So the question for me was, you know, if we have now more money for March, should we use it all, and should we distribute it all across the different projects that we have? Does that mean that, you know, even though a project might be small, just because we have more money, that project is going to get allocated more money, although it might not need it? So this was a question that I started thinking a lot about, and I realized that something that we were missing, that I think is really important, is a way to cost projects. You know, how do we know how much it completely accurate? We should be able to come up with some sort of estimate on the cost of each project, right? So the way I thought about it was that maybe we could start using again the hours approach, but this time not to compensate people like we were doing in the past, but just as a means to cost the different outcomes or the different projects that we have. So just like in the example we have here of this project, we can see, right, that maybe for the content calendar, the project manager defined that an estimate of 5 hours would take to complete that outcome, right? Then that means just like 105 die that would cover for that specific outcome. Then that way we can kind of like come up with some sort of estimate cost for the overall project that we have, that again, this is just an example. I'm not even leading this project or anything, but just wanted to use it as an example. And we can see here that after doing this exercise with the different outcomes, you come up with a total cost for the project for that month, right? So in this case, it's like $987. That equals to 47 hours. Then now that we have a cost that is defined for this project, then I think it becomes pretty easier to match it and to see if it fits to our current budget available that we have, right? And then we can adjust accordingly based on, you know, if we have savings or we are in a little bit tighter position at the moment, but we actually know how much these projects are going to be costing. And then we can also prioritize, right? Maybe, for example, for this project during this month, we don't do all of these outcomes, but we only do the urgent ones because that's what's most urgent, right? And that means that this total cost decreases substantially, and that maybe we'll have more money to allocate to other projects that also have really urgent outcomes that need to be completed during this month, right? So I think, yeah, you know, like overall using hours to cost outcomes that gives us an overall cost for the project should be a practice that we start implementing, and I think it could bring a lot of benefit in terms of the budgeting, in terms of the finances, and how we handle and allocate funds throughout the projects. So yeah, maybe I'll stop there. That's basically the template that I'm proposing. We can also take a look. Gideon gave a shot to use this same template for the Token Engineering Academy Partnership Project. So if you click on that link, you'll see the same template, but now with these different projects and also like the cost estimates and everything. So I think it's pretty cool to look at it, to look at some examples on how this could be implemented. And yeah, I'll just open the floor for any questions, comments, and see how people think on how are they thinking about going with this.
So yeah, want to say fantastic work as always. Very detailed, and I definitely do appreciate the clarity on, you know, what's been done and where you're looking to move forward. I wanted to ask, so with regards to the prioritizing, would that be done, let's say on a call like today amongst everyone, and then it's kind of voted as into what is prioritized, or is it down to the actual team or project manager to be like, okay, this is what I'm prioritizing for this month, and then
Joseph, I don't know if everybody's experiencing this, but for me, you're clipping. Your audio's clipping.
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit.
that clipping. Sorry. I'll make a bit sure. So with prioritizing tasks within the projects, within the projects, would it be down to go on, or would it be down to the project, or to prioritize the tasks that need to be done for that month? I hope I wasn't clipping, and I hope my question was clear.
Yeah, I was able to catch your question, Joseph. Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we also kind of like forgot to mention, but it's also here. Like, I feel that we are realizing that there are certain tasks as a group that we have to do every month, right? So what I'm working on as well is some sort of calendar for the coordination team, that where we know that what exactly do we need to do in each call of the month, you know, like kind of like a checklist that we need to go over specifically on a certain period of time, you know. You can see that at the end here. And what I added here, and this is also something that I wanted to go over too in this call. Maybe right now it's a good time because it relates with what you're saying, you know. And to answer that, just pretty briefly, the way I'm thinking about it, before getting any feedback of you guys, is that yeah, there would probably be a call that I'm calling here, you know, like a sense making call, where all the different project managers present this document, their project spec, and share it with the rest of the group and the rest of the contributors. And we all kind of like have this discussion about priorities and what's important and what should be taking on for the coming month, right? This sense making session should happen before the beginning of the month, right? Before the actual month starts. So that's the reason why I want to come up with a really clear calendar where we know, like, you know, on this day, this week, we need to go over this, so we are on track and we have an accurate flow of completing everything that needs to get done. But in that sense, yes, I feel that there should be a mix between sense making with the coordination team members and also some sort of sense making with a project manager and the participants of the project itself, right? Maybe that happens first. That be my guessing, and then maybe that is taken into the coordination team call, and then that gets discussed, and then we are able to define and give priorities on what's going to be taking on for the month, right? I'll just go really quickly through this list before I'll open the floor again. Just based on what we've been talking about, the different and realizing the different tasks that we are doing every month. I think we've taken always some time to define priorities for the following month. You know, what are the bigger, high-level priorities that we are gonna be working on. Then this idea of presenting during a call these templates, this spec for the projects with the smart outcomes included. That's also something that we would probably be doing every month. Then having, again, during this session, some feedback between the team members, trying to do some adjustments to the priorities, to the urgent, important, to the funding allocation. I think these three could happen maybe during one call that we go through during the month. Then there's always this moment of finalizing and presenting the actual budget to everyone. Ideally, that's always at the beginning of the month or before the month starts. Then we also talked about having this window, maybe half of the month or throughout the month, where we can do certain adjustments to the budget based on the current needs and based on whatever could change throughout that time throughout that period. Then we should also always have some sort of time, probably at the end of the month, where project managers present either the results or the progress that they were able to deliver with their outcomes, right? And then lastly, I guess that the last action that we should consider is just presenting the results from the previous budget, right? Just like we did for February, kind of like after payments are sent out and things are kind of like finalized, we can do an assessment and see if we were actually adhering to the budget or if there were any changes on that. So this is kind of like the list of tasks that I'm trying to put into a recurring calendar and a recurring flow to cover. So yeah, maybe I'll open the floor again now to try and get any comments, any ideas from the template itself that we showed, from the costing process, and also even if you have something to say about this list of tasks to be tackled for the calendar, that'd be great as well. And I really hope I was able to answer your question, Joseph.
Yeah, no, you was. It definitely did answer it, and it definitely did make sense. I think I would probably suggest the only thing I'll probably really suggest is if for example I don't want to have like, or say create a documentation or have separate documents for everything, but I definitely think it would be kind of interesting to see whether it can be added to an existing document or whether it needs to be like a separate thing altogether, where it's shared for each team. You know, everyone has their dates. You know, let's say for example, it's the 25th of every end calendar month that you're going to be reviewing what happened in the past month, and then talking about what priorities you're going to have in the second month, whether that's going to be in this document or a separate document, and then so it can be like tracked at a later date to say, you know, if we ever want to go back and be like, oh, why didn't we prioritize this before this, or whatever the case is. That's the only thing I'll kind of really suggest. But apart from that, everything else sounds amazing.
Let me. Can I just add two clarifications or two additional things on this? One is that in the prioritization of the kind of the budget, one of the things I think we're going to want to do is, and Bear mentioned this, but I want to just highlight it. You know, we've got the Tuesday calls and we've got the Thursday calls. The design of it has been that Tuesday calls, we try to bring in more people, so it's a little bit broader set of people who are weighing in on stuff. And the idea is over time, this is one of the things we're working on with TAM, to bring in an advisory team, right? Like a kind of an advisory network. And so the idea is ultimately what we want to do is, when it comes to these kind of like overall allocations of funding, to use that broader group of people to weigh in and just give us some advice. So so that would be, I think, you know, in that kind of where was that, the sense making, maybe in the sense making meeting, that we're trying to get some sense from people, not just on this team. And then the other thing is just the kind of the adjustment, like the mid-month thing. Part of the reason for that is that, you know, at the beginning of the month, we may or may not know that much of projects. So for example, the grants program, there's a lot of stuff that Isaac is probably going to find out in the next week or so about Gitcoin's capacity, and we may need to adjust very rapidly. Same thing with the Token Engineering Academy, and as things move on that, we may need to move things around. And so part of the reason for this whole categorizing by important and urgent is so that we know, like, things that are not important, we're just not doing. But things that are not urgent, we might be able to just move funds. So like, for example, this is the communications one, you know, the stuff that's not urgent, we may have to shift funds mid-month and shift people's time over, you know, from something that they're doing here over to one of the projects where it is more urgent.
So, all right. So I just want to say that, Barrett, this is amazing work, and I know this is a very, very difficult task for anybody to approach it. But you're laying down the infrastructure, and I think it's really great what you've done so far. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of the Gideon mentioned the other day about synergy, and this is something that, you know, the past couple of days I've been working on this kind of comprehensive roadmap for the SPI. And the way I see the SPI is not a single project, but an initiative with what's looking like 5 or 6 projects that need to be managed in order to complete that vision. And so when we talk about priorities and urgent, you know, we talked about, you know, the SPI being important but not urgent, which is something I agree with. But I would say that there are some things that are within the SPI that are urgent and that are very important. And, you know, I think categorizing it in that broad stroke is very, you know, is kind of backtracking a bit, because we have so many dependencies on each other's work. You know, whether it be with the TEA, you know, and the grant making. And what I'm talking about here is that I really think we need to have kind of maybe even like a kind of a emergency session, if you will, work session, maybe a couple hours, maybe next week or something, where we can all, if we can all develop some type of roadmap for our independent projects, to put them all out on the table, to really look at and analyze what things need to get done and really prioritize it, item by item basis. That will help us get a little bit of a better picture of what to prioritize and help us to flock a little bit better towards things that need to get done each month. Because there are some things that the project managers, for example, IT will be working on in the background, even if it's not prioritized for that month, that need to get done, and that should be recognized. But also, we really should prioritize what we focus on each by month by month basis. But in order to do that, we need to have a really good understanding of the overall picture of all the initiatives that are going on at any single time. And so this is one of the things that I think is extremely important, and I don't have a good view on, because I don't know how to prioritize. I don't, when it comes to understanding the needs that Isaac has for the small grants program, for the Token Engineering Academy, or for the governance and conviction voting stuff like that. These are all things that are kind of dependent on each other, and sometimes they need to be enacted simultaneously or in sync with one another. And this is something that I think we really should prioritize in terms of just maybe having a work session where we say, hey, let's lay it out all on the table and discuss exactly what is important, what is urgent, what are we going to focus on for the next month, and say, let's check this off the box. And as we move on in time, we start to slowly see this infrastructure being built, and these projects starting to take form and take shape. And then having compensation easily associated with our priorities and initiatives. But right now, what my biggest concern is that we have a lot of moving parts that are independent of one another, and sometimes we need, in order to see its full potential, we need to have if the small grant program is a priority, let's all work on it that month. Let's each and every one of us. I think flocking is something that we need to do better at, and I think that is something that will help us just kind of chip away at stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, if that makes any sense.
I would like to continue with a comment, if that's okay. I pretty much just joined, but I listened to everything Nate said. I think we should probably, I would personally like to exercise more delegation. Well, for example, the calls we usually have, we spend about minimum of 3 hours a week with the contributors call on Tuesdays, and this call on Thursdays. And we usually talk more about how we work rather than the work we have to do. And honestly, I think we can all identify that there's a few owners for each initiative, or for everything that's happening. And for example, Bear, who's running a lot of the things that happen in the background, I trust Bear to make any decision. I can always, we can always spend a lot of time sort of taking everyone's opinion, but I probably would rather start delegating more stuff to everyone, including myself. If there's anything that it falls under my domain, let's say, I would be happy to make more decisions, so that the time we have together, we can spend more on talking about the projects and building more synergy between them. Because I think I don't think I don't think it's a bad use of our time, but I think there's better use of our time than spending 3 hours a week talking about this stuff when we probably would do better if we trusted and delegated more to the folks who are anyways doing the work. Like I just, when I joined, I saw very quickly the document Bear made, and I heard some compliments about the document. I have to sit down later and see it. But Bear did that on its own, and I can now have some give him some feedback asynchronously, and I think we can take that example and expand it further to everything. There's probably better things we can focus on these calls.
I'll provide a little bit of feedback on this. I agree with you. I mean, I think we've been. Oh, hey, Crypto Zach, good to see you. Wow, long time no see. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Just checking on in. I heard you guys are up to a lot of new things, so just checking on in.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So really quick, I think that Nate, for your point, actually, I think that these documents, these project plans, are kind of the way to do what you're talking about. And so, like, basically, if you look at, so I think the next steps are for you to do one for the SPI and for Isaac to do one for the grant. I mean, he's already working on something, but basically, if we can just kind of use a similar format. Then what happens is you can look at each one of these, like you can look at, here's like the TEA partnership one. Everybody can look at this and go, okay, does this involve me? Yes, no. Actually, do I have some thoughts on this? Like right here, you can see grant making program integration. So like this is one that definitely involves Isaac, right? So I'm going to want him to weigh in on this part of it. So I think this is how we'll start to move more in that direction. And I do think it makes sense. Like maybe next week we just basically kind of like go through plans and give each other feedback and find like where those dependencies are. And Isaac, to your point, like I think we're actually, if you look at our meetings, they're starting to focus more and more on the work. But we did have like in December and January, a lot of our time spent on process kinds of things. And I think it's kind of natural as we are shifting the way that the TEC works to kind of like have to spend some time retooling and like shifting the gears a bit. But point taken, we definitely should be spending more time on the actual work and less and less time on the process. I agree.
Just very quickly, maybe if Bear, Gideon, and I, or whoever wants to, I think we should probably have a seat to sort of standardize projects. I just saw the document, and I think we could do that on Clarity, and we would have one document less on the open. So we can talk more about them later. But if anyone wants to join, just drop a message.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, trying to answer to the different points that were talked about. First of all, with Nate, yeah, I think that the intention of this kind of like format would be that, Nate, that you have the possibility and the ability to break down the different projects that you have. And what I'm thinking is that for what you're mentioning, if the SPI, maybe it's kind of like a little too big, and you see it as having a lot of projects within it, maybe what you can do is just kind of like break it down into those actual projects, and then take those projects and use this format to better define them, right? And kind of like trying to bring it into a smaller scope. Maybe that's something that could help.
I definitely agree with that. I think that, even when I'm breaking it down on paper, like the thing is, it's hard to prioritize what to focus on, because depending on our priorities for that particular month, I could be focusing on one thing or another, and that is something. It's hard for me to prioritize without seeing the big picture and understanding what we're prioritizing. So like, we don't have to have the details of what needs to be done, but like having kind of a broad outline of understanding, this is the work that needs to get done in the next 6 months. Like, just here's the list of all the things that need to get done in the next 6 months. However we prioritize that is however we prioritize that. But as a project manager of the SPI and having these multiple projects underneath, it'd be very helpful to understand exactly, what are the other things that need to get done to really see the dependencies on see the synergies between our initiatives, and to say, hey, okay, I'm going to prioritize this when this happens, or prioritize this when this happens. That way we can get on the same page and understand that, in the next 6 months, these things should be achieved. And having those broader outline goals, and then we can still have the prioritization each month where we decide the priority. But as as having this kind of ongoing initiative with the SPI, which is not going to go away, like it's just going to get bigger and bigger. It would be really helpful to just have it all on paper for everybody's initiatives that we have, and it may change, but kind of having this broad outline would be really important to look at.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think these sense-making calls that we start having, where everyone brings kind of like their project plans, and we're able to talk about it and prioritize. I think they're going to be really important, and hopefully they will be able to tackle this situation, right? Of looking at the different interdependencies across the different initiatives that we have. So yeah, I'll hope that we'll get good at this, and that this will help us as well. Now, in terms of with what Isaac was saying, yeah, I do agree also, like on relying more on async feedback, especially for things that don't require like big discussions, right? I think that's something we should definitely do more. And the other thing you mentioned, yeah, about like the projects and moving to Notion, right? Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Yes, these were just like examples that we just did them on the Google Doc. But yeah, the idea is that we all have them like integrated in the project management platform that we start using, that for what it seems like it's going to be Notion coming pretty soon. So yeah, like that's kind of like the plan to make it pretty accessible and concentrate everything in one single place. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know if anyone has any comments, or back to you, Gideon.
Yeah, we have just 1 minute, so I think we need to wrap up. But I think we've got some good feedback. We'll take that as the next steps for this project management. Again, Bear, thank you for all the good work on this. And okay, that's it for today. Crypto Zach, great to see you again. Metaverde, great to have you show up and see you again. Marathon Mind, get some sleep. It's late for you. And for everybody else and all of us, thanks for the call. And we'll see you all next week, or see hopefully a good number of you. All right. And have a good weekend, folks.
Bye. See you later. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Me.
Thank you, everybody.